This is the whole effing show, Rob Van Dam. You're listening to, you know it, that's right, another wrestling podcast.
It's time for another wrestling podcast.
Are you ready to be the man? You have to be the man. The champ is here. Yes, the man. Give me a hell yeah. What the Rock is cooking. Woo. Yes. Woo. What? Yes. Woo, woo, woo. What's you gonna do when Hulkamania destroys you? For the benefit of those with flash photography, would you please shut the hell up? Oh, yes! Ooh, yeah! That was what was best for business. The kid do dig that sucker! And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so. Have a nice day!
With your hosts, Steve Credo and Jonathan Benjamin.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another wrestling podcast. I'm Jonathan Benjamin.
And I'm Steve Credo.
Steve, this is episode number 55. Just when you thought we couldn't get any bigger, today we have a surprise Legends show. Can you tell us a little more about this show, Steve?
Jonathan, this is like you said, it's a surprise show, a great show. We have a lot of legends on here today. Why, Jonathan? Well, it's a big special thanks to Citi Field and the Metropolitan Hospitality Group for making this happen, along with a few others. Guys, today, not only are you going to hear from the Nasty Boy Brian Knobbs, not only are you going to hear from Ken Anderson, you're also going to hear from Greg the Hammer Valentine, and Jonathan, the whole effing show, RVD. Rob Van Dam will be on today's show. We're talking about Legends of Wrestling happening this Sunday, June 7th at Citi Field. Guys, you don't want to miss it. What a show to be at, Jonathan. It's going to be packed down there in Queens. So, guys, if you're hearing this right now, head on over to Mets.com/wrestling. Get your tickets today. It's going to be one heck of a weekend, Jonathan.
Absolutely. Now, Steve, whenever I think about the summer, I'm thinking about being outdoors, I'm thinking about baseball, I'm thinking about all this stuff. So what better way to celebrate this amazing show that's going to be coming up than talking about wrestling being outdoors? Now, you may be a little confused because when most people think about going to a wrestling event, they think of kind of cramming into an arena and cheering on their favorite wrestler. But over the years, because of wrestling's popularity, other venues were used to accommodate wrestling's growing fan base. So today, let's talk about some of wrestling's biggest outdoor events. But before we get into that, Steve, we have a lot of social media presence, as we say. And for all of you that are tuning in right now that want to know more about Steve and I, go on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com to find out any and all information about Another Wrestling Podcast.
That's right, Jonathan. But Jonathan, you know, we were at WrestleMania 29. We were at an open arena at MetLife Stadium. That was a unique experience, being outside. I mean, I don't think I've ever been to an outdoor wrestling event like that. And I mean, it was probably one of my favorite shows. But I mean, I know there's been many more before that, Jonathan. Maybe give everybody a little bit brief history on some of these outdoor shows and how they started, maybe?
Well, absolutely. Throughout wrestling, there's been a lot of outdoor shows. It's kind of been a special attraction. But during the 1930s and 40s, promoters used baseball and football stadiums to kind of legitimize their shows. Now, that just means that back then, people were kind of struggling with what professional wrestling was. Was it real? Was it staged?
What?
Yeah, absolutely. And so putting them in a baseball stadium or a football stadium kind of made them seem mainstream. So that was really the beginnings of wrestling outdoors. But then probably the most famous outside event of that era was live from Chicago's Kaminsky Park. This event had Buddy Rogers defeat Pat O'Connor for the then NWA title. this was a huge deal because television was just starting to become popular at the time, and people all over the world saw this event. It's still one of the biggest gates or monetary successes for professional wrestling of all time. So, as you can see, wrestling outdoors is not a new thing, and it's a very cool way to kind of get that into a different, no pun intended, arena, really.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, you don't realize the history of it when we kind of, slap you a little bit with some facts of, how it kind of all started. But Jonathan, we're going to be headed down there Sunday at Citi Field to see this Legends of Wrestling show out in an outdoor baseball stadium. So it's going to be great. But one of the legends is actually joining us right now, Jonathan. We have none other than Greg the Hammer Valentine joining us right now.
All right, joining us again on the show is none other than a true legend in professional wrestling. Mr. Valentine joined us on episode 42. Today we're going to catch up with him to find out a little more about the Citi Field show this Sunday, June 7th. A true legend in the world of professional wrestling. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Greg Valentine. Mr. Valentine, thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm blessed. I'm doing very good. Thank you very much.
Now, we've been doing some snooping around, but we haven't found out what your role will be at the event. Can you let us know what you'll be doing live at Citi Field? Are you just going out to meet and greet the fans, or are you going to have a match too?
Oh, no, I'm not wrestling. I told them I'd wrestle, but they really didn't have any Legends wrestling. So I'm walking a young protege of mine out, Andrew Anderson. We'll be at ringside with him, and I'll be out to like sort of a manager / whatever personality.
Sure.
Legend. I'll be waving at people. I'm doing a lot of
and bringing down
autograph sessions there and stuff. Yeah.
Sure, I am bringing down the hammer in case anybody gets out of line, right?
Well, exactly. I'm kind of, I'll be out there. Of course, if I can get into the ring and do something, I'd love to do it.
All right.
Because I still wrestle. I don't care. Age doesn't stop me. I could still do it because I still work out and say my prayers and eat my vitamins. Wait a minute, that sounds like Hulk Hogan. Oh God.
Now this is going to be an outdoor event, and you've competed in a lot of outdoor events in your time. What are some of the major differences of competing in an indoor arena versus an outdoor arena?
Well, I always like indoor arenas better. It's the air conditioner works and stuff like that. Indoors, when I hear it was an outdoor, I go, oh God, because it's hard to play to like in Citi Field if they just got the one part there full of people. You got to play to that part of the arena or stadium, and if you will. So you got to play to that part of it. So it's different. When you're in an arena, it's all around you. Maybe Citi Field will fix it while it's around you. Mm-hmm. That's the better way to go.
Sure.
But we've done a lot of outdoor things, and a lot of times some of these cities wanted us out there in the baseball stadium and stuff. So we do it.
Sure. Now, so of the legends at the event, there'll be Bill Goldberg, Bret Hart, the Nasty Boys, Ric Flair, Mr. Anderson, including yourself, and many more. Who are you looking forward to catching up with during the event that maybe you probably haven't seen in a while?
Well, I see these guys. I mean, there's a lot of legend events that go on, and I see some of the guys. I saw Goldberg not too long ago, but I haven't seen Flair for a while. Of course, me and Flair have a lot of history. I think the Steiners are going to be there, if I'm right. They're going to be there.
Yep.
I look forward to seeing them. It's kind of like, these guys, it's kind of like your fraternity brothers. You haven't seen them since you got out of college, and you go back, and there they are, and so it's kind of like that,
Nice, yeah.
Now, speaking of Ric Flair, both you and him have used the figure 4 leg lock. So who do you think has the best figure four in the business?
Well, you know what? That's hard to say. I put my figure four on Ric Flair one time up in a Royal Rumble in Albany, New York, when he first came into WWF. And, I don't think he's ever put one on me. We started using that figure four around the same time. He was in the Mid-Atlantic and St. Louis NWA area. I was in the WWF. So of course, I'm always going to brag about myself. So I'll say mine's the best.
All right, that's what we wanted to hear.
Now, Greg, you're a big legend in the wrestling industry, but who do you consider to be maybe one of the biggest legends in professional wrestling history to yourself?
Well, you'd have to put, everybody used to say Gorgeous George or my dad, Johnny Valentine, or Buddy Rogers, the original Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, or Bruno Sammartino. But the biggest legend of all time in the sport right now, and The Rock is close, but he's a movie star, sort of, or a big-time movie star, I should say. He had the #1 box office this weekend, but The Rock still loves wrestling. But the guy, I'm not going to beat around the bush anymore, it's Hulk Hogan.
All right.
Well, we talked about a lot of legends, and it takes a certain set of characteristics to become a legend in the wrestling business. What are some of those characteristics that a legend must possess? Like, is it hard work? Is it just having a good body? What does it take to become a legend?
Well, as far as having a good body, there's not a whole lot of guys that have a body like the Ultimate Warrior or something like that. You got to have a good body for, not just for looks, you got to have a good body for being out and being able to go out there and go for an hour-long match if necessary, wrestle all the time, pull your bag through the airports, jump around from airport to airport to city and wrestle, 7 nights a week, and then maybe get a couple nights off for years. And I wrestled for 40 years, but I wrestled the Major League of Wrestling for at least 30 years. Mm-hmm. So that's what it takes. It's like, you're around for a long, long time. And finally the people realize who you are. God, he must be good because he sustained this for so long of a time. Plus, we're talking about selling tickets. That makes you a legend. If you could go in there and I can wrestle Bill Goldberg and I can sell the place out, that's the whole thing. That's where your credibility comes along. Being a person that sold a lot of tickets. I sold Madison Square Garden out 18 different times over a 10-year period. So that's what makes you a legend, and never giving up. You know?
Sure, yeah. Now, we live in a world of YouTube and the WWE Network, and, wrestling is everywhere and very easily accessible. Growing up, I had a lot of VHS tapes, or, it wasn't that easy to watch, what you guys did, but, you had to kind of collect a lot of videos. Now, with that said, what are your thoughts on getting to meet some of your fans who grew up from yesteryear, who have since grown up, had kids of their own, and now their kids are starting to find out who you are with the easy access to find you online, or, like I said, the WWE Network, to where, how does it feel for you that, kids, it's very accessible to see your body of work, if you will, to where you're legends, legends will never die pretty much, especially in the world we live in,
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's real. It's a lot of fun to have. Of course, you got your fans that they're in their 30s and 40 years old, but when their kids know who you are and they know you're on your game, or they've seen you on the YouTube, or they've seen you on DVDs or the WWE 24 network, it's very flattering, and it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we just spoke about the WWE Network, and it's growing every day. They had a lot of shows on there, Legends of Wrestling, Legends House. They got great ratings. Do you think that you'll ever be a part of any of those shows?
I'm sorry, I missed what you said about the Legends House and what else?
Yeah, I was just wondering, like WWE Network's growing every day, and they have a lot of shows like the Legends of Wrestling, Legends House, and everybody seems to really love them. Do you think that you'll ever be a part of any of those shows?
I was originally going to do the Legend House, but they were they were handpicking the guys they wanted, and they asked me if I'd want to do it. I said sure, and I probably the next time they have one or the next time after that, I'm sure I'll be considered because I'm one of the Hall of Famers, and I know they're going to try to get as many different personalities in there as they can.
Yeah, definitely. We personally would love to see the Hammer on there, so maybe we'll have a little campaign going to get Greg the Hammer on the next the next show. Now,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you get to watch any wrestling these days? I mean, there's so much wrestling on this week. From Mondays to Wednesdays now. Every day of the week I think has a show of wrestling on. But what are some of your favorites to watch these days? If you watch, or what do you watch these days?
Well. I watched the product. I call it the product. I'm sorry. I watched the show, and I do the playback routine where I watch it, and if I see something bad, I just fast forward it through. But it's pretty entertaining. I don't like all the talking that they do. It's just kind of a different setup. I'm kind of used to that when they have Monday Night Raw and they talk for 30 minutes before they had the first wrestling match, but it's a different thing. I kind of wish I like the old school stuff where they used to have locker room interviews with Gene Okerlund. I thought they were funny, and I know the fans, and that's that kind of deal. But it's all different now. It's all about TV. It seems like TV here, 3 hours here, 2 hours where and 2 hours on Friday. It's just a lot of TV, and then a lot of pay-per-views. To me, it's too much television. But, baseball's on every night of the week, but they do have a season where they're off, too. So, so it's hard to say. I would like a little bit if they throw a little bit of old school knowledge back into these shows that they're producing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, you just mentioned that baseball and other sports seem to have like an off season. They have time off. Now, when you were wrestling, you were doing 80 days straight before you had a day off. And then, sometimes you were wrestling twice on Sundays, you were wrestling holidays. Do you think that when you were wrestling that you guys would have done better if you had had some sort of an off season? Or do you think that did you enjoy just what you did back then? You didn't care how many days you worked?
I was such a consummate pro, not to toot my own horn, but my dad, Johnny Valentine, loved wrestling, and I loved wrestling, and there was really nothing else in life except for my wife that I loved and my kids. I mean, I loved wrestling. I didn't love all the trips and everything, but you get caught up in that whole, that whole thing, and doing it 30, 40 years like I did, it's hard to get it out of your blood. And that's why I'm going to enjoy being up at Citi Field, seeing everybody, and it's my whole life,
Yeah, definitely. We talked a little bit about media and stuff out there, but do you think it's about time we had a Greg the Hammer Valentine, special WWE DVD out by now?
I signed a contract for that 3 years ago, and nothing's happened yet. But then,
it's in the works.
The contract's not over yet, so I would say it's in the works. It's got to be. There's so much material. Yeah. I'm always on the 24, but yeah, I deserve my own DVD, and
definitely.
I hope they do it. I don't know. Hey, they give everybody else one. Should be able to give me one.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely. Now, we spoke to you about Citi Field, but another event that we talked to you a little bit about whenever we had you on last, but it's New England Fan Fest, June 27th. You're going to be there with even more legends. You're going to be in Providence, Rhode Island. You're going to be taking part of the meet and greet. You're going to be all over there. Do you have any fond memories of Providence, Rhode Island?
Oh, yeah, that was one of the greatest arenas we have. It's called the Dunkin' Donut Arena now or something, but that's the same arena. We love going to Providence and Boston because there's such great crowds, such wrestling crowds. Plus the seafood was good too. But that being said, they put me in the Hall of Fame there. You know, it's a smaller Hall of Fame, nothing like WWF, but it was good, you know. And Howard Finkel was up there. I saw a lot of the Gene Okerlund was. I saw a lot of people that you don't normally see. It's another real good Legends Fan Fest, and yeah, that's going to be the end of this month. Yeah.
Sure. And now, Greg, we see a lot of different wrestlers today compared to when you were coming up in the business. But could you think of any of today's wrestlers that would have been able to cut it back when you broke into the business? Because I don't know. I think a lot of the guys are soft today, and that they're not they didn't really grow up in the time that you did, to where I don't think they could have handled what you guys went through growing up in the business. But all in all, do you think there's any guys today that maybe you think would have been perfect for a different era, maybe back of when you were coming through?
Well, just some of the guys, like Cena, of course, and Bob Orton's kid, what's his name? He's great.
Yep.
Randy Orton. There's a few guys that you can see that have that old school mentality, and they're just so natural. But they didn't come up the hard way like we did. That's why the guys that drew money had the it factor, like Piper, myself, Orndorff. We went on long trips. We bled, blood, sweat, and tears. We went all over the world. We were just dedicated to the wrestling. And there's no way that you can learn that in a school. There's no way that because I know a lot of these guys are manufactured cookie cutters coming out, and Vince is spitting them out there and throwing them in the ring. They have no idea about intensity. They have no idea how to make people mad or make them laugh. We could control. We were psychologists really in the ring.
Sure. But
we did it so much. Every day, 365 days a year. And that's why we were so good at it. And that's why that part will never be repeated, because that was like the first years of rock and roll, and in the 60s and 70s and classic rock, and then you had the first years of real wrestling, and this high octane WrestleMania stuff and all that, where it really kicked in the jams. They'll never be able to repeat that. The only way they can repeat it is go backwards and start over.
Well, you just mentioned rock and roll, which kind of leads me right into our next question. You were part of a tag team, the Rock and Roll, Shake, Rattle, and Roll. You had Honky Tonk Man. You also had Jimmy, the Mouth of the South Heart. Now, that's something that I think, and I know Steve agrees with me, that we think's lacking in professional wrestling today is managers. Do you think that the WWE needs to get back to some of those things like you're saying from the 80s, like managers and maybe some of the backstage interviews and stuff like that?
Yeah, because, the guys that come out now, they all kind of, like one guy, Roland Reigns or whatever his name is, and some other guy, these guys all got great bodies or great athletes, but they all look the same. There's a few guys that look different, but you got to have personalities, different personalities, and the wrestling managers help bring that personality out, like Jimmy Hart, Captain Lawbound. Oh my God, Freddie Blassie, the Grand Wizard. That was so much part of the business back in the days, and it was great. It's just added to the showbiz, but it wasn't. Once they put the guy in the ring, the showbiz was over. He went in and wrestled. Another thing that's lacking today is wrestling. They don't. I watched a match that I did with Bob Backlund years ago, and I just happened to throw in a DVD the other night, and I couldn't believe we wrestled 40 minutes, and we didn't even throw a punch. It was all wrestling holds, back and forth, back and forth. The fans would love to see a match like that.
Yeah,
with holds instead of running back and forth and jumping off the top. Who in the hell in a real wrestling fight or match or whatever you want to call it if I got the guy laying out, why am I going to turn my back on him and go up the top rope and jump off on something? Why am I going to do that? In a real fight, I'm not going to leave him. I'm going to pin his ass right there.
That's it, guys. Wow.
So it's just logic. It's logic. It's got to be logical.
That's right.
So,
well, Greg, you said it, man. You said it. We appreciate talking to you. A true legend like yourself. Guys, come out and see Greg the Hammer Valentine this Sunday at Citi Field. Head on over to Mets.com/wrestling. Pick up your tickets. Greg, it's been a great time, and we can't wait to see you this Sunday.
all right, buddy. Thank you guys for having me on again. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, Greg, we'll see you Sunday, and we'll see you in Rhode Island, all right?
All right, once again, special thanks to Greg the Hammer Valentine for joining us. You guys can see him. Once again, head on over to Mets.com/wrestling. Pick up your tickets today. Jonathan, speaking of links, head on over to Facebook.com/Another Wrestling Podcast. Guys, gals, if you're listening, give us a like on Facebook. That's what all the kids are doing these days, liking things. But, Jonathan, back to some more about talking about some outdoor shows. One of my most favorite pay-per-views of all time, I think, has to be Wembley Stadium with WWE, where they held SummerSlam in 1992. Do you remember this, Jonathan? Do you remember the Wembley Stadium show?
Absolutely. The one thing that I remember more
Do
than...
not say it. Do not say it. I know what you're going to say.
No, you don't. I'm surprised. I mean, I know what I want to say, but I don't want you to cry on the broadcast here. But the one thing I remember is seeing the Legion of Doom come out on their Harleys down the long entrance ramp, and they had like the shiniest pads on that you've ever seen in your life. And I cannot forget that, and I'm very it's a memory that's just stuck with me forever. So I love that event. It's probably one of my favorite pay-per-views of all time.
I'm just glad you didn't bring up Bret Hart and how he lost that night. One of my favorites. Also going to be...
he did lose, didn't he? I forgot about that.
Well, if we're going to be stating facts, yes, he did lose. But, hey, Bret Hart's also going to be there this Sunday at the Legends of Wrestling, guys, so make sure you head on over there. But, Jonathan, it was definitely different because I think growing up, we're so used to seeing all the shows happen in the States over here. This was the first pay-per-view in my memory that was held in England for the WWE. It definitely had that little special appeal not being in the United States, right?
Yeah, and you did feel it, and the fans over there, we've learned in recent years that fans, whenever they come to WrestleMania or any of these shows, they bring a definite energy to the entire show. So I was very happy to see that, and I could realize that from a very young age that this was something special. So is there something, I mean, obviously the Bret match for you, was there something that stood out to you about how it was outdoors? Like, did you like that feeling? Did you? One
of the things I want to point out is that this was, I think they did it a few other times, but this is one of the times I remember where the ring was kind of raised a little bit off the ground. So because the crowd of people there, man, I don't think they were used to this many people being out there. And when you look in the crowd, it's just a sea of people headed straight back. And granted, if you're in row 99 out there, you're not seeing anything. So I remember the stage, or the whole ring just being elevated so that it was kind of like people didn't have to look through other people's heads. They can kind of still see it in their point of view. So I think one of the most memorable things for me watching this outdoor event was just the sea of people being there. Just I couldn't imagine being in that crowd.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that it's no coincidence that after this event, Vince started to look out, to having more of these type of outdoor events.
And we have another special guest joining us right now is the one, the only, Ken Anderson.
Joining us on today's show is one of the best in the business. He spends his Fridays beating up people on Impact Wrestling. He is an awesome wrestler, an actor, an all-around good guy. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Ken Anderson. How you doing, Ken?
I'm good, man. How are you? I appreciate the intro, but I'm actually an asshole.
There you go. Well, Ken, thanks for joining us tonight. How you doing, man? Is everything going good?
Very good, very good. Just got back from the UK. Actually, I was over in the UK for a few days and just home for a few more days before getting ready to come up to New York for a big show.
That's the United Kingdom, Steve.
I know.
Okay, all right. Well, you mentioned it. First things first, this Sunday, June 7th, live from Citi Field, you were going to be part of a special event called Legends of Wrestling. Now, what can you tell us about your involvement in this event?
Well, for the first time in quite a while, the guys who made up a good portion of the Aces and Eights and Impact Wrestling will be back together. And that's Wes Briscoe, Doc, and Knox. So, here's the thing. Brian Knobs and Jerry Staggs, the Nasty Boys, been talking all kinds of garbage about us, about me. And these are guys that have been everywhere in the business. They've worked for every major company. They've been around the world. They've been talking a lot of trash. And, Brian Knobs is known in the business as being somewhat of a prankster, right? He pulls pranks on people. Well, these four guys, myself and these other three guys, we don't pull pranks. We just beat people up. So I'll just leave it at that.
All right. Now, like we said, you'll be wrestling at Citi Field, the home of the New York Mets. We know that you're an avid Packers fan, but who's your favorite baseball team?
I would have to say probably the Twins. I go to more games because I live in Minneapolis right now. And to be honest with you, I'm not a huge baseball fan. Growing up in Wisconsin, it was all about the Packers, and the Brewers kind of always sucked. And then, you know what? To be honest with you, truth be told, the Packers sucked for a long time too. But there's just something different about that organization, just about football in general, that I am drawn to.
Sure.
Now, we mentioned this event is called Legends of Wrestling. We've said it already a bunch of times. We're probably going to say it a bunch more. But what legends are you looking forward to seeing while you're there? We know that Bret Hart, Ric Flair, Goldberg, they're all going to be there. Any of those guys got you excited for the event?
Absolutely. I was just going to say the three that you just rattled off there. And I'm actually looking forward to seeing Knobs and Sags in action once again. And, it's just a really stacked card. It's going to be a great show. There's just tons of talent that everybody's going to know and recognize and remember. It's going to be a little bit of nostalgia, and it'll be highly entertaining.
Sure.
Now, do you actually consider yourself a legend in this business?
Oh, God, I hope not. I hope I'm not that old yet.
Well, I consider you a legend, but not to do with age, just the I guess your contribution so far to the business.
Well, I appreciate that. And that's, I guess, the way that I stand. I don't think that that's something for me to determine. That's for the fans and my peers to determine, So
sure.
If they want to call me that, I guess I appreciate it.
There you go. Now let's talk a little bit about Impact Wrestling. We wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't ask this. So it was just announced that Destination America will now be showing Ring of Honor as well. Did you have any kind of reaction when you heard this news, and do you think it'll make for some friendly competition between the two companies?
You just said the key word, and something that's been sorely lacking in our business for quite a while. I mean, to the degree that it once did, and that's competition. And I know people, for whatever reason, like to just pick out what the negatives could potentially be. But I think some of the potential positives are what you just said. There's going to be competition between the two brands, a friendly competition, because at the end of the day, we're all in the same boat together. We're all in the same team. It's like the wrestling community is sort of a big fraternity, if you will.
Sure.
But that's what I'm really looking forward to.
All right.
Awesome.
And you know what? At the end of the day, what happens will happen. All we can do as performers is go out there and do our best, do our jobs, and try to entertain people and tell stories and put on a top-notch entertaining program, and those other people that make decisions in the corporate world within the networks, they're going to make decisions, and we don't have any control over that. We don't have any say over that. So I think that if we tend to focus on that kind of stuff, the only people that really are hurt by it or affected by it are us. You know, if I worry about stuff that's outside of my control, the only person affected by it is me. So
Okay.
I just worry about the stuff that I can't control.
Awesome. Now, as a member of Impact Wrestling, the locker room, now, who are some of the guys we should be looking out for? I guess, in other words, who is the next big thing to come out of Impact Wrestling?
I would say, as far as new, fresh faces or newer, fresher faces, Bram is, in my opinion, just a phenomenal talent. He's got the total package. He's got the look. He's got the mic skills. He's got something that you look at him and you just see something in his eye that makes you not want to run into a guy like that in a dark alley for real. You've got EC3, who I find to be highly entertaining, and again, a guy that has a total package, and somebody that's been with TNA for quite a while and sort of, I don't know, I don't want to say underutilized. It's just, I don't think people have seen his full potential, and that's Gunner. And I think Gunner is just a phenomenal talent all around. He's a great worker. He actually can talk, and he's pretty intense. And he's got an okay look. You know, he's got to work on his legs a little bit. He's got to do some squats or something. But, yeah, those are three names I would say off the top of my head.
All right.
Well, we did see you in a video with a couple of our friends, the Xer guys, teaching some workout tips there. Do you think you can get Gunner to do some of those squats?
Yeah, I'm working on him. I've been working on him for quite a while. But he just wants to sit on the couch and eat potato chips, watch wrestling and Star Wars, and play video games and things like that. So maybe we can get the extra guys to maybe show up at his house and have an intervention.
All right.
Now, it was also announced recently that Billy Corgan, Smashing Pumpkins fame, he would be involved with Impact. With all these changes coming down the pike, are you excited for the future of Impact Wrestling and what's in store?
Absolutely. And the fact that Billy's been added, I didn't really know Billy too well. I had met him a few times here and there, but it was just in passing. So when people would ask me, are you excited about Billy coming on, I would say, well, the only thing that I really know about him is that he's creative. He's been successful in the entertainment industry thus far, and I know that he's a huge wrestling fan. He's very passionate about our business. And so I'm hoping, and I think that's what Dixie Carter's and John Gaborik are hoping, is that those things are going to marry well together. And having had firsthand experience working with him a few times now, it's I couldn't be more happy. I couldn't be happier. He's just the little things that he adds, the nuance that he adds to a wrestling match, his understanding of psychology and why we should do things to garner certain reactions from people is unteachable, I think. It's something that you either have or you don't. Mm-hmm. He has it.
Now, professional wrestling seems to be having a resurgence in popularity these days due to a lot of factors, including, but not limited to, the debuts of some of independent wrestling's best. It may be a little-known fact, but you did spend a lot of time on the independent circuit. Are you happy to see these guys coming up to the quote-unquote big leagues?
Oh, I couldn't be happier. I think that for several years, for some reason, the directive was we don't want these indie stars. We don't want people who are self-motivated, self-starters, entrepreneurs. We don't want those people disgracing our business for some reason. It was, we need people that really don't care about the business, that just look at this as a way to make some money and they want to be famous. And I'm hoping that, and I'm seeing that, I think those people that made those decisions are sort of seeing the error of their ways, and they're realizing how beneficial it is to have people who actually care about the business and love the business and who have worked extremely hard to get to the point where they're at, and it didn't matter. The paycheck wasn't the number one most important thing on their list. It was mainly for love of the business. I think if you can do something that you absolutely love, you will eventually make money at it.
Now, Ken, you're one of the guys who has almost done it all in professional wrestling. But do you have any, things left on your so-called wrestling bucket list? Is there something that you still just really need to do?
Yeah, but I prefer to keep that kind of stuff to myself. I was always, I always had these goals in my head as I was coming up, and I would always hear people around me sort of boldly state, "This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this," or "I want to do this." And when it's kind of like in sports, when you see a guy talk trash about the other team that they're going to face next Sunday, and they say boldly, "This is what I'm going to do," and then they get their ass kicked. It's that person looks like an idiot.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's to some degree I sort of always felt that way. That I just like to keep my own.
Sure, no problem.
Goals for myself. Yeah, there are certain things that I would like to do in business. But if tomorrow my doctor said to me, "Ken, for whatever reason you cannot wrestle another day in your life," I would be pretty happy with the way that my career's gone. Yeah.
Well, wrestlers talk of people who can talk fans into arena. We think that you're one of those wrestlers. Other than yourself, who do you consider some of the best talkers in the business?
Oh, like ever? I mean, obviously, Hogan, Rock, Austin, and those are the guys that got me interested in the business to begin with. Today, like I said, kind of the same guys that I was talking about earlier, those guys in TNA to look out for. Bram, people need to pay attention to that guy because he's got something special. And like I said, EC3 continues to gain popularity or just to gain confidence and ability on the microphone. So,
all right.
And as far as other companies go, I don't know because I don't really watch. I try to avoid as much as I can. I watch every, here and there. But
sure. All right, well, hopefully this doesn't happen for a long time, but when your in-ring career starts to wind down, do you think you would want a clean break from wrestling, or would you be willing to still be involved in wrestling, just in a less physical role, maybe?
No, I would definitely like to either start a wrestling school of my own or assist with the development of new talent. Whatever capacity that may be, whether it's strictly off the road or if it's on the road at shows and helping the younger guys put their matches together. But yeah, I definitely don't see myself just stepping away and getting out of the business altogether.
All right.
I love it too much.
Well, we follow you on social media, and it seems like you're pretty busy outside of wrestling. What are some of your interests outside of the squared circle?
I've always taken an interest, since I can remember, since I was a little kid, I wanted to be an actor. So that's something that I've always sort of pursued, still actively pursuing. It's a very tough sort of business to break into, especially if you're a pro wrestler. For some reason, in Hollywood, they view pro wrestling as the redheaded stepchild of the entertainment industry, even though The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, happens to be the number one box office draw in the history of movies. And Dave Bautista's having a pretty good run, and there's a couple other guys that are doing well. But other than that, I also enjoy politics, religion. Talking about religion, I recently started up a podcast. It's actually almost a year ago now, with a friend of mine. It's called Push the Button, and you can find it on iTunes or Stitcher. And we basically talk about it's not about wrestling at all. We don't talk about wrestling. We talk about sex, politics, and religion. All the things that we're supposed to not talk about. They happen to be the most important things in everybody's lives. And they affect everybody's lives in some way or another, but we're not supposed to talk about them. So we basically try to, my co-host and I have pretty differing opinions on certain things, and we try to talk about those and show that we can have meaningful, honest, open conversations about these things and not walk away wanting to hate each other or hurt each other, but just kind of open your mind and think a little bit.
All right. Now, after leaving the WWE, you filmed a series of short videos, and you're no stranger to the big screen. Do you think we will get to see Mr. Anderson in any more films down the line?
That's what I'm hoping. I am hoping that. And that's something that I work on all the time. I'm always studying the craft of acting and trying to hone my skills and trying to take that over and cross it over into the wrestling industry. I believe that the differences between pro wrestling and any other form of Hollywood entertainment, television shows or movies, is not that. The gap is not that wide. And I would prefer to see more of our talent sort of starting to go down that road and really focus on taking acting classes and things like that. Because there's nothing worse than having a great feud and then seeing a backstage interview that's just terrible. It's just bad acting. And we've all seen it. And I've probably been involved in one or two myself.
Lightning round.
Dixie Carter.
Sweetie.
Okay.
All right. Austin Aries.
Oh boy, Austin Aries.
And don't
the first thing that comes to mind is vegan.
Okay. Kurt Angle.
Cyborg.
Eric Young.
Funny guy.
Ethan Carter III.
Annoying guy.
And Mr. Anderson.
Dumb prick.
Now, we mentioned that you're very active on social media. So where can fans of yours keep up with you these days?
You can find me on Twitter. My handle is at Mr. Ken Anderson. That's Mr. Ken Anderson. And then on Instagram, I am Mr. spelled out Mister Ken Anderson. And as I said, you can find me on iTunes, Stitcher, or directly at the ddmpe.com. And the name of the podcast is called Push the Button.
All right, Ken. Well, we can't wait to see you this Sunday. Legends of Wrestling at Citi Field in New York at the New York Mets Stadium. Ken, we'll have a good day, and we'll see you then.
Will you guys be there?
Yes, we will.
Yep.
Oh, maybe I'll at some point toss you guys over the top rope and introduce you to the world of pro wrestling.
There you go.
That's amazing. I think you've got a future in this business.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, guys, once again, thanks a lot to Ken Anderson. And if you're listening to this right now, if you guys head on over to youtube.com/anotherwrestlingpod, you can check out more interviews that you missed, and more exclusive interviews that aren't even on these shows that are just exclusively for YouTube. So, guys, youtube.com/anotherwrestlingpod. Now, Jonathan, back on the topic of outdoor shows, we talk a lot about WWE because that is the mother of all shows, pretty much. I mean, granted, a lot of other people do outside shows, but I mean, the most memorable in our growing up, our adolescence, was the WWE. And one of my favorite WrestleManias, which probably isn't while a lot of anybody else's, but I mean, WrestleMania 9 was great because it was the first WrestleMania that was outside during like the daylight hours, you know what I mean? To where they were in Las Vegas. It was most memorable to me. I just remember sitting in my couch at home. I think I was the only one watching it at the time because there was a family party going on, and I was glued to the set watching this because I was just amazed of seeing an outdoor show. It had that appeal because it was different, you know what I mean? To where you see every other wrestling show and whatnot, it's always indoors. You're like, everything looks exactly the same. But when it's outdoors, man, it's just totally different, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And this, like I said, comes off the heels in 92 of WWE being in Wembley Stadium. So Vince was probably like, you know what? I like this idea of holding big events outdoors. And then the next year we got this. to me, this event, looking back on it now, it's probably a lot of people's favorite WrestleMania, but for totally the wrong reasons. It was just ridiculous. It's like Chikara. It was a interspecies wrestling. It was one of those things where you had, Giant Gonzalez, chloroforming Undertaker. You had Macho Man coming out on a, like being carried out by Roman gladiators and being fed grapes. Bobby Heenan rode out on a camel, like
backwards.
Backwards. Jim Ross made his debut. Like, it was a very amazing event, but just totally crazy. But the outdoor element of it, I remember just thinking, my God, this is genius. Why haven't they done this, more often, really?
Definitely, and I think that's the whole theme of the show, guys. Outdoors, outdoor stadiums, outdoor events, and WrestleMania 9 definitely sticks out as one of those most memorable events because it was one of the first WrestleMania that was outside like this, and that's what really caught the eye of people. To where when you look back at it, were the matches top class, the best WrestleMania matches ever? No. But it's most memorable just for what you said right there, the different elements it added to being outside and what it created. So, you add this whole outdoor element and it's a whole, addition to the show, you know what I mean? It adds that, it's that, the third man or whatever. It's definitely, that extra piece of, production equipment to where just being outside, man, it just adds to the electricity of the night.
Well, can I ask you if you remember, I don't know, maybe you don't, but do you remember the main event of that?
No, I don't remember it at all. But let's move on. We can
Yokozuna was there, and he wrestled Bret Hart for the championship.
Poor Bret.
It seemed that Bret was having a rough go at it. He lost, and cleanly, I might add. Mr. Fuji did nothing wrong, and then Yoko, as just a proud son of a gun, he challenged Hulk Hogan, and Hulkster went away, the WWF champion, and he had that shiner, that black eye, and I remember there was some ridiculous story as to what WWE said happened, like someone roughed him up, Yokozuna or somebody, but it really ended up that he was in a jet skiing accident, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, boat skiing accident,
yeah, and so it's pretty ridiculous, but WrestleMania 9, one of the greatest outdoor wrestling events that has ever happened.
On a side note, Bret Hart, if you are listening, I promise I'm going to have a whole Bret Hart theme show one day when Jonathan isn't around to make up for this today. Sorry, Bret.
I think the next thing that I want to talk about, it still involves Yokozuna, is... Do you remember when there was the whole thing about people trying to body slam Yokozuna?
Yes. That's when the whole Lex Express started, baby. The whole, trying for him to be the the next Mr. America kind of thing. So.
Absolutely, and this happened right in our neck of the woods, New York City. They had this big thing on the Intrepid, and the helicopter came down. And this is, once again, an outdoor event. It's just something that they couldn't do indoors. It wouldn't have been as memorable, I don't think, if they had done it indoors. So we had, people after people trying to body slam Yokozuna, and sure enough, Lex Luger showed up and did the impossible. So I think it's one of the most memorable things that happened outdoors as well. So I relive that a lot. I watch that little clip on YouTube sometimes. But
yeah, definitely. And guys, once again, Legends of Wrestling happening this Sunday, June 7th at Citi Field.
And somebody who was actually there at this event is joining us right now. Let's talk to none other than one half of the Nasty Boys, Mr. Brian Knobbs.
Today's guest is going to take us to Pity City. He's a former tag team champion, and he's part of nearly every promotion there is. But this Sunday, he will be taking part in the Legends of Wrestling event down at Citi Field. Please welcome Mr. Brian Knobbs.
Yeah, how you doing, man?
Doing great. Thanks for joining us. How have you been, man? How's it going?
I'm doing fantastic. I really am. I'm just out there. Can you say living the dream? I'm living the dream as, an old, semi-retired pro wrestler, but every now and again it calls for a big show like this to bring me and Sag back out in the ring again and show some punks like Mr. Anderson and, Mike Knox. And, if Gallo and Briscoe want to join in, so be it, man. We don't care. It'd be like a barroom fight in Allentown, PA. Are you kidding me? We're Northeastern boys. You know who rules. It's not anybody from Minnesota. That's for damn sure.
Well, we hate to break it to you, but we spoke with Mr. Anderson recently, and he had some pretty disparaging remarks about you. What do you have to say about that?
You know what? All I can say is talk is cheap, and I'm guaranteeing you, everybody out there, it is Citi Field. It is a New York City street fight. I grew up in the streets of Philly, and there ain't no tougher towns than Philadelphia. And I can guarantee you right now, New York has a beat a little bit hands down when it comes to street fighting in the wrestling ring. I also was in a couple of Chicago street fights too, against Cactus Jack and Max Payne. So, we've been around the big cities. And New York, when you move to New York City, it gets crazy, brother. And all I can say is, Mr. Anderson, you made a bit off more than you could chew. And Mike Knox, please. What are you, a walk behind her? Are you like Arn Anderson? Give me a break. I'm just wishing Gallo and Briscoe jump in the ring. Come on, bring it all. Let's hey, bro, I'll smash someone over the center field fence. I'm telling you. Like back in the day, like my buddy Tommy Agee used to do.
Now, we understand you're a huge Tampa Bay fan. How do you feel about wrestling on Mets territory?
I was always kind of a Mets fan from the start, back in 69, 70 when I was growing up. I wasn't a Phillies fan. I grew up in Allentown, PA, Whitehall, PA. But when I came down there, I've been down there for 22 years. When a new regime took hold, Stu Sternberg and they were a group of guys. They called me aside and asked if I would like to be the 10th man, like Seattle has the 12th man. And I said, sure, I would love to. And, they made videos of me. And, I was at almost every game, home game, which is a lot of games, it's 80 games. They're trying to switch it around because when the Yankees and Red Sox played us, it was mainly Yankees and Red Sox fans. And we had no really fan base. And you know what? It took me 2 years, but I changed it around. And plus, my good buddy Coach Madden, who ain't there no more, who plays for the Cubs, he's the coach there now. He told me, hey man, stick with it. He's from Hazleton, PA, which is not but I would say 50 miles from Allentown. And we became really good friends. And you know what? We did turn it around, and we went to the World Series in 2008, and who did we play? But none other than the Philadelphia Phillies. And they were calling me effing traitors, and, you're not just from Allentown, PA. What are you going for the Tampa Bay Rays for? But I've been down there since 88, and, that's how all this stuff started with the Legends of Wrestling.
All right.
Now, we've been talking today about major outdoor events, and you've been part of some of the biggest outdoor wrestling events ever. What are your thoughts about wrestling outside versus wrestling indoors? And what's your favorite outdoor venue that you've wrestled in?
Famous outdoor venue would be Wembley Stadium, SummerSlam 92. We had 87,000 people there, and we were the first match. It was me, Sag, and the Mountie against, they just got elected to the Hall of Fame this year, the Bushwhackers and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Hey-oh! And you know what? There's nothing like being first match because nobody has done anything yet. So you're not copying anybody's moves. You're not doing anything anybody else did because you're the first match. And we tore it up, man. It was a great feeling. And it's just a great feeling being in front of 88,000 fans, you know, and we did more than Michael Jackson did.
Wow.
We hold the record there at Wembley Stadium.
Wow. Now, you've had a major part in bringing this Legends of Wrestling event to the Northeast. Do you guys have any plans to come back in the near future? Maybe do any other stadiums or any other venues up here?
Well, right now, July 31st, we're doing the Florida Marlins. We're down there doing Legends of Wrestling there, but it's a more meet and greet and signing autographs. But in 2013, we did a wrestling event afterwards, and we did the whole. I mean, we were signing autographs. Goldberg threw up the first pitch, then speared the catcher from the Colorado Rockies. I mean, it got national exposure. I mean, it's all good. I mean, it's all actually family, friend, family, whatever you want to say. It's all good, entertainment for the family and the friends. And that's what we want to do, because our era still sticks out, if you know what I mean. When I'm at an autograph session at a Comic-Con, people come up and really shake my hand and say, thank you for the years of enjoyment. I said, I wish I could take that back on my body. That was my Terry Funk impression. But anyway, it was a no-brainer. It was like, what can I do, to get everybody together and be like, not the main event, but like the sideshow with baseball and wrestling. And the Rays asked me if I could do a wrestling night, and it went over really well. And we did it twice, and then it caught on, and we did a couple more teams. And now we just kind of built this following behind us to have a bunch of legends at different Major League Baseball parks. But this is different. The one with the Mets, they're different because it's the New York Mets. And I'm telling you, that new stadium is beautiful, Citi Field. And I can tell you one thing, they wanted to have, when the baseball wasn't in town, they wanted to have it on a non-baseball day and just have like a fan fest for, New York City, for, the fans. Because without the fans, the Nasty Boys wouldn't be here right now.
Well, it's widely known that you and Jerry Sags are one of, if not the most popular tag teams of all time. Where do you rank yourself amongst all the other tag teams in wrestling history?
I think between 1 and 10, we're number one. No, I'm only kidding. Between 1 and 10, we're down the line, dude. I mean, I can't take nothing away from the guys that came before us. I mean, even talking old school, like Mr. Fuji and Professor Tanaka, Tony Gurria and Larry Zbyszko. I mean, then you get up to our age, and then you got, guys we actually wrestled, like the British Bulldogs, the Hart Foundation, the Road Warriors, the tough SOBs, the Steiners, okay, the Harlem Heat, Public Enemy, I mean, the Power and Glory, the Bushwhackers. And I really admire that they got, inducted into the Hall of Fame this year because they deserve it. But when we were around back in that day, there were so many tag teams, and you guys know it too, from Demolition, there were so many different tag teams, just like there were so many different managers. The greatest manager in the Nasty Boys' career wasn't Missy Hyatt, I guarantee you that. It was Jimmy Mouth of the South Heart, who kind of guided us in the right way and, told us this is the path you got to take if you want to make it to superstardom and, be a real great tag team. But we were taught in the old school, and that really helped out too. But the match that proves it all and stands for our legacy on the wall is WrestleMania 7 against the Hart Foundation when we won the WWF Tag Team Championships of the World. I mean, that by far, stands for our legacy. The fans are so well perceived to us and give us such compliments and make us feel so good that, we must have did something right.
Yeah, definitely. If we could talk fantasy warfare for a second, if the Nasty Boys could go up against any tag team, past or present, is there anybody in your mind that you could see you guys, going one-on-one with?
Right now, no. I mean, you know what I'd like to go against? I'd go against Rikishi's sons, the Samoans. You know, because we went against their dad, right? We went against their dad and Sammy when we were called the Head Shrinkers.
Oh yeah.
Fatu and Samu, remember before he was Rikishi. So that would be pretty cool going against Rikishi's sons, who I knew Rikishi and the family so long now.
The Bushwhackers just went into the WWE Hall of Fame this year. When do you think that the Nasty Boys will get to take their rightful place in the Hall of Fame as well?
You know what? That's up to the fans. When they guest bug WWE enough and tell them that we're deserving enough to go in, that would be my biggest honor and Sag's biggest honor. That that will be a stamp that we finally made it when we finally get to the WWE Hall of Fame. I mean, that's an honor. It really is. To get in there, it's an honor. And I'm just telling you, if we would get accepted to go, that would be the biggest thrill of my life.
Mm-hmm. Now, besides wrestling and this Sunday at Citi Field, are there any other projects that you're working on these days you can let the fans know about?
I got some reality shows I'm working on, and right now I'm really building this Legends of Wrestling because it's not only for Major League Baseball. Like I said, we're doing the Florida Marlins July 31st, but the big show here is June 7th because it's a wrestling event alone at a big stadium. And, I don't expect to fill it, no. But I expect the fans that really enjoyed our era or the guys I'm bringing in, and it's a WrestleFest. It's a have fun, old school, let's go have some fun with new school, injected into that. So, you know what I mean?
Sure.
It's got to be fun. I mean, seriously. I mean, hats off Jim Duggan's going up against Robbie E from, TNA. And he better get ready because he might end up with that looking like a popsicle and that board sticking out of his butt.
Now, Knobs,
and then after that, Hacksaw will have him hanging up there going, hey-o!
Well, Knobs, we really appreciate you talking to us tonight. Guys, everybody listening out there, June 7th from 3 to 7 p.m., Citi Field, the Legends of Wrestling. Head on down to Nastyville this weekend in Queens and check out the Nasty Boys.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. And see you on Sunday.
All right, we want to thank Mr. Brian Knobs for joining us once again, and we can't wait to see him this Sunday live at Citi Field. But if you guys are listening to this right now and you want to know a little more about us, if you want to see some pictures through our eyes, then follow us on Instagram at Another Wrestling Podcast. So, Steve, we've talked a lot about these shows today, a lot that have been, outdoors. But what about some of the things that can go wrong during these outdoor shows? It looks like it's going to be a beautiful day on Sunday, but weather can play a factor in these outdoor events. So
knock on wood.
Yeah, knock on wood. What are some of the things that you notice about these events?
So one of the little things I remember is the crowd noise sometimes. When you're in a big arena, you get the fans cheering, booing, whatever, and it echoes off the building. So like when you hear it on TV, it sounds louder than what it is. But when you're in these outdoor stadiums, you have a lot of people yelling and cheering and booing and whatnot, and sometimes what I've noticed is that it just doesn't resonate back on TV of what the crowd is actually doing. Like for one clean example is WrestleMania 29. We were there, MetLife Stadium outside, and just one example is when Cena came out, the whole 80,000 fans out there were booing. Well, not all 80,000 of them, but a lot of them were booing, and it was just thunderous there outside. But I don't think it came across that loud on TV. And I don't know, maybe it was just, I think it has to do with being outside because there's no echo of it. So it's just little things like that to where, maybe you don't really get to hear what the crowd is truly like when you're watching it on TV. Just being out there, the noises go up and not across to what you're hearing on TV. So that's kind of a little factor. And sometimes, I don't think all the times, it's not going to ruin the show, but it's, you don't really get that full atmosphere that you should get,
Well, something that's like a little known fact, I talked to a lot of people about this, and it's crazy, but it was in April in the Northeast, and there was a chance of like snow. I remember that we went to the Hall of Fame, and it was freezing that night. And so they were selling blankets in the gift shop and all of that stuff. But if you go back and look, there's a YouTube clip of this. And if you look at the ring for WrestleMania 29, they actually had heaters in the ring posts because if it had started to snow or anything like that, they wanted the people in the ring to be able to, wrestle still. So there was a constant breeze if they needed it. And it was going to be around between 60 and 70 degrees. Blowing in the ring. So that's awesome that they created an actual ring that had like heaters in it. But that's obviously something that can go wrong is the weather. Sure. It can rain, it can snow, it can be really...
Yeah, especially with us in the Northeast. I mean, when you had WrestleMania up here, it was kind of still in just out of the winter months. And, up here we get rain, snow, sleet, hail, freezing rain, everything and anything. So it's not like, you have in Florida, there's a chance of some rain. We get everything, so it's, you really have to cross your fingers on the weather being a factor. But, I'll tell you what, even if it did rain at WrestleMania, Jonathan, it wouldn't have ruined my day because I was still happy to be there, so, hey.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, that brings me to, one of my last questions is, do you think that WrestleManias should only be held in those outdoor stadiums, or do you think that they should be in arenas as well?
No, they should definitely be in arenas too, but big arenas. I mean... Granted, like the whole nostalgia of MSG and whatnot, having WrestleMania there, yeah, it's good. But you know what? There's stadiums that are just so much bigger these days. Like, especially, I can't wait for next year's WrestleMania being held in Texas. That stadium is huge. I don't know the exact attendance, of who they can fit in there, but the Jumbotron alone is like the size of a football field. So, not necessarily all stadiums, open stadiums, should have WrestleMania, but I feel like, they definitely need to be held in the biggest stadiums, and not just in America. They definitely need to take that show overseas and, pay tribute to some of the fans who are some of the biggest fans, give them a WrestleMania overseas.
Yeah, I'm still hoping that they bring it to Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. We've had a Super Bowl there and tons of huge concerts, so I'm looking forward to the day that WrestleMania comes back to Indiana. We can't thank our sponsors for this show enough. They really helped us a lot, and we can't wait to see them this Sunday live at Citi Field. Special thanks once again to Citi Field and Metropolitan Hospitality. We are going to be there. Come meet us. Come talk to all the legends that are going to be there. RVD, Goldberg, Bret Hart, Gag, Ric Flair, the Nasty Boys. You name it, they're going to be there. And Steve,
let me just correct Jonathan too. It's the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. Bret Hart this Sunday, guys. So make sure you stick around, enjoy the show, meet and greet some of the fan favorites out there. It's going to be one heck of a time in Citi Field, which is an outdoor stadium, a baseball stadium, and guys, just that alone is the reason to go, because how many times can you say you saw a great wrestling event in a baseball stadium? So that should be fun for all the fans.
And once again, for those of you listening to us and you like what you hear, please go subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, and Player FM.
That's right, Jonathan. Or just go to the mothership of anotherwrestlingpodcast.com, and all the links are up there, guys. Like us, follow us, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. But Jonathan, we like to say that we're the whole effing show, but right now we're going to be having the whole effing show with us right now. Mr. RVD, Rob Van Dam, is joining us in the studio.
As far as guests go, you could say today we hit the jackpot. Joining us tonight is someone who has literally been there and done that. He is a multi-time world champion, an activist, actor, and the whole effing show. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rob Van Dam. Now, Rob, thank you so much for joining us. How's everything going these days?
Hey, guys. It is awesome to be RVD. And I know you might think that. Most people think, like, man, it must be really cool to be him. But I can tell you firsthand, I'm really enjoying being Rob Van Dam. They're awesome right now.
Great, man. So this Sunday, June 7th, you will be joining a plethora of other wrestling legends for an event conveniently entitled Legends of Wrestling. What can you tell us about what you'll be doing this Sunday at Citi Field in New York?
Yeah, so myself and some of the other plethora will be actually competing in wrestling matches. And before that, I think everybody, the entire plethora, if you will, and if you won't, do it anyway, we'll be doing autograph signings, taking photos with the fans. And so it's an opportunity, for the fans to meet all these legends at one time, because Ric Flair's going to be there, Goldberg, Bret the Hitman Hart, of course Rob Van Dam, and you can let everybody know, and you probably already have, who all's going to be there. But point is, we're going to be meeting everybody firsthand, getting photos with them, and actually, making memories. So that's part of the pre-show, and then during the show, of course, then some of us, including myself, I heard, I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that I might be wrestling Sabu.
All right.
All right. Now, as you mentioned, prior to the wrestling, there's going to be a meet and greet with you and all the other legends. Now, you've been in the business for over 15 years. You've had, no doubt, tens of thousands of fan encounters over the years. Can you tell us about an interesting fan encounter that you've had?
Well, a lot of them are very interesting. You'd be surprised, like, if you do enough of that, what the standard consists of. You learn new names every time, and in different areas where you're traveling, there's different names that are popular in that town, and that's always a big part of it. I got to be honest, I love it when the pretty ladies come by and want to get a photo, and I might hug them a little tighter than some of my male aficionados, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, sometimes they bring me gifts, and absolutely that's cool. Bring RVD gifts, totally.
Awesome.
I had a guy recently at a signing that told me that he met me once several years ago in Amsterdam, and I thought, well, that's not something that I hear very often. And then he described me coming out of this laundromat, going up the stairs, and taking a photo with him several years ago. And I was like, dude, I totally remember that.
That's
yeah.
great. Nice.
I actually got my laundry there a few weeks ago, too.
There you go. Now,
I only brought a couple of pairs of socks to the laundromat. The lady said it was the smallest load she's ever seen, and she watches midget porn.
Nice. Now, there are some other ECW legends, such as Tommy Dreamer, and like you said, Sabu will be at the event as well. Looking back on your career, you have always been known as an ECW guy, but is it weird to think that you spent more time in the WWE than ECW?
That is weird. Is that the fact?
That's the fact.
Yeah, that's crazy. Let's see. So ECW was 96 to 2001, so 5 years. And then WWE was 2001 to 2006, I believe, with 1 year off with my injury, and then back recently. I'm not sure, man. I think that's debatable.
All right.
Now, it's no doubt that you're an absolute legend in the business, but what we want to know is, how have you been able to remain so consistent for such a long time?
Sticking to my guns. I'm stubborn. That's what it is. And I know when not to listen to people, because that was one of the hardest things when I was young and new to the business. I used to wonder, who should I listen to? Because everybody would pull me to the side, and then they would give me a piece of their mind, and they all said conflicting things, you know, that they thought would be good advice to me because they all wanted to have their stink on me is the way that I see it. You know, they wanted to be able to say, yeah, I helped him when he was young, I helped train him, whatever, but there was a lot of conflicting advice, and when you're young, you got to make the right call. Gee, should I listen to this guy? This guy says, don't look at the people. This guy says, hey, you got to connect with the people. This guy says, hey, slow down. This guy says, hey, you know, keep it up. You know, keep, you know, boom, whatever. For me, that was a big part of it. I've always made the right decisions throughout my career. When I look at how long I stayed and when I left, everywhere, every contract that I've had, which has always been on my own, you know, except for when I first started in 1991 with USWA, they actually finished me up and Sabu and the other guys before we wanted to be finished, and that was what they did. And every other contract, WCW, WWE, a few times, All Japan, ECW, I left there when I knew it was time. TNA, we were actually going to do another contract. They just never produced it, and so you know I knew it was time to knock on you know on another door when I did. So it's all about making decisions. I think I had the old school mentality of the original Sheik, which now kids don't have that. A lot of the wrestlers in WWE are second generation wrestlers, but somehow the style has changed so much. I feel like the old timers have lost like the generation above me, I think, lost their grip on the younger guys. And it's like what used to be wrong is like the new right now when I watch it. It makes me confused about, you know, how valid my knowledge and experience is if they're doing things different. But things have to progress. Sheik told me way back in the day, don't listen to anybody else. Ask them. They don't know what you're talking about. And that was I think that was the advice that helped me out the most, and being consistent, sticking to my guns when everybody wanted to change me, and then here I am, standing the test of time.
Wow. Well, so speaking of standing the test of time, something we have to point out is that from day one until now, it looks like nothing has really changed about you. But in your eyes, what about you is different today from Rob Van Dam of 5 or 10 years ago?
Well, I'm always improving. Like that's when I left WWE in 2006. It was very important for me to experience other things in life. I've been wrestling my entire adult life since right out of high school, and you know, I do the Rolling Thunder. People cheer, town to town. Okay, and I wanted to get in touch with the spiritual side. I wanted to better myself as a person, thereby bettering life. And because I've really been involved in that, whenever I look back at myself, I always look at a lesser version of me. When I look back even further, like if you want to go like 15 years back, and I think about the people I knew at that time and the relationships I had and whatever, a lot of times I just think I was a jerk back then. You know, definitely worse before then. But I'm always improving. And, you know, like you never know what the future holds. But if I went back 5 to 10 years and talked to a 5 or 10 year younger version of RVD, I'd be like, bro, don't even worry, man. The future is great. And, it's awesome. Right now, I take my shots. I work when I want to. I'm off whenever I want to. I got a house in LA, a house in Vegas. Go back and forth whenever I want to, and party my ass off. I'm supposed to be in. Actually, I'm going to be doing my second movie of this year in a few weeks, and then there's 3 more that are on the table that should happen this year. And so I'm actually like so busy that I'm trying to find time to do certain things that I want to do that are even business related, and that's a good thing because it's all stuff that I want to do, so it's all positive. Stuff that I don't want to do, I don't do. Mm-hmm. That's another way that I've always been successful and gotten ahead and been able to stay true to me is, I don't do a lot of things that I don't want to do. I mean, there's paying your dues. There's the yang to the yin. Sometimes, hey, sometimes you gotta clean up dog shit if you want a clean yard. I mean, don't get me wrong, but a lot of people live with a lot more hate and a lot more guilt and a lot more negative energy than I allow into my life.
Well, it's no secret that you're one of the greatest high flyers in the history of professional wrestling. What do you think about some of the up-and-coming high flyers in wrestling today?
I think they're amazing. It's I can tell when I watch them wrestle that times have changed because of the whole layout of the match and the pacing and the optimizing of each moment, and it's just, a lot of that makes me feel almost old-fashioned when I see how different it is. I'm like, no, he needs to slow it down. He needs to sell. But besides that, they're out there showboating. As long as they can get the fans to connect and be emotionally involved, then they're doing it right. And that's what a lot of people never actually learn how to do, is how to get the fans to really care. A lot of guys have gone out there doing all kinds of crazy high-risk moves, but, every moonsault in the world, but the fans didn't care as much. And I came up that way too. When I remember in the early 90s coming up, and I would do, a jumping, spinning back kick, springboard off the guardrail on the floor, and then the fans, they didn't know who I was. They just wanted to see Sting come out and do his call, whatever that is, that scream up to the oh, there you go, do it for me. And anyway, so having said that, the way that the standards have lifted and continued to move forward impresses me very much. I've read a lot of messages on Twitter from fans that are saying that Neville kid is like a newer version of RVD, and I like that. Like, I'm actually what's the right word? I don't know. I'm humbled by it, or I'm impressed because he's very good, and I see him. I saw him do a 450 off of the guardrail to the floor, and there's stuff. Because for me, I used to like testing myself, and the bar wasn't as high back then. I didn't see anybody doing moves that that I was doing, and so I had even less to go off of. But there was a certain point where I knew, I could test myself physically to a point to where I could probably do something, but then is it worth the risk factor? And after slipping, doing some crazy stuff, walking the ropes and some crazy stuff, after slipping a few times, I learned to trim a lot of that stuff out where, okay, I don't need this anymore because these moves are solid. The fans want to see this. And so, it's great. I think the guys now, a lot of them get it, and they have a combination of both. The impressive moves that keep people entertained, and a solid, arsenal of fans' favorites that they can count on and get behind and support.
Sure. Now we've seen a major shakeup in the world of wrestling too with NXT lately. Another ECW alumni, Rhino, has been competing there on a limited basis as of late. Do you think you'd like to go there and mix it up with the NXT roster sometime?
I would say that there's got to be a reason for me to go there, and you know what I mean? If there's a reason, then maybe that reason would intrigue me, but do I want to go just to wrestle those guys? Hell no. I've been wrestling over 25 years. I don't have anything else to prove.
Sure.
The only thing I have to prove is that I'm still the whole effing show, and every time I get in the ring, I still do that. I'm 44 years old, and people don't understand that I'm at least just as tough as when I was 24 years old. And I know that normal people age differently than RVD, but luckily I'm in the spotlight, so I can show that. So I don't have to hold back. I can do a jumping 360 leg drop off of the apron onto the guardrail, crash my body, rolling to the floor, and still get up from that. That's one move I haven't seen anybody steal, and I think the reason is it would end most wrestlers' careers.
Absolutely.
I can still do that. I like my chances today just as much as when I was in my 20s of standing in the road and getting hit, by a speeding truck because I'm durable. I'm made of tough stuff, and I'm very fortunate that that hasn't changed. I've only gotten wiser, smarter, and like we said earlier, way ascended spiritually, which really helps everything because I'm much more connected with the universe, and life just doesn't get any better than figuring out the patterns of the universe.
Yeah.
Well, is there one wrestling accomplishment that you want to achieve before you finally hang up the boots that you haven't achieved yet?
I can't say that there really is. A lot of people talk about the Hall of Fame, and I don't expect it. At the same time, I think maybe I have enough fan support to where I have a decent chance, and I do think that would be pretty cool. But I think I have to quit wrestling first in order to get in the Hall of Fame, and I could be wrong about that, but that's my understanding of how that works. And either way. Whether I do or not, I won't be surprised, but that would be, it's a pretty awesome thing. Like, I'm honored when people still call me champ, even though they don't have a belt, and they just say, dude, come on, you're out that day, you're always going to be champ. You're champ. I'm flattered. That's the word I was looking for earlier. I'm still flattered when they say that. And when they say, hey, here's a future Hall of Famer, even though that could be bullshit, it still flatters me as well.
Awesome. Now, you inducted the original Sheik into the WWE Hall of Fame. When the day comes knocking for Rob Van Dam to go into the Hall, have you ever thought about maybe who would you want to induct you?
I can't imagine anybody else even being like a number 2 choice behind Paul Heyman.
Awesome. Now,
I think, by the way, out of my whole career, I think he's been the only guy in the office that's ever really understood me, and probably the only guy that's really had my best interest at heart too.
All right.
Okay. Now,
whether it was personal or professional, he was the guy that stood out for me, that understood how to utilize me by letting me be me, and nobody else ever has. Besides him being a friend.
Okay. Now, very few people seem to be able to handpick how they want to leave the business. If you got to pick your opponent, the place, and maybe the stipulation of your final match, what would you pick?
Let's go with a world tour, maybe even a whole year, at least 6 months, maybe a world tour, retirement tour, Wrestling Sabu, double retirement. Because he loves it a lot more than me, so he's going to stop at a much older age than I am, which might put us around the same time. And Japan, Australia, London, Germany, everywhere, at a cool pace where we can enjoy it. How about that?
That's awesome. Let's book it.
Now, like we mentioned,
sorry, don't hang my boots up too soon.
No, definitely not. But like we mentioned before, you're a very busy guy. What are some of your passions outside of wrestling? Is there anything when you're not wrestling that you just love doing?
Well, you mentioned that I'm an advocate, so I spend a lot of time pursuing my personal studies on that. Medicating out here in California.
Sure.
But there's, I read, I write. This is something every day. Writing is something that I have on my list that I want to do, but procrastinate and suck at. But then sometimes, I'm able to do a little bit. And I have several writing projects, and I also am doing a bit of acting. So that's been something. I'm reading scripts. People send me scripts, and I read the script. And then if I like the part that they have me in mind for, then I assign a non-binding letter of interest so they can use my name to further the project. And then that happens so often I forget about most of those letters of interest that I sign. LOIs, as we call it in the industry. And so many of those that, like, sometimes years later, someone will hit me and say, "Hey, we're finally doing that movie." I'm like, "What? Refresh my memory. Who are you?" that happens a lot. Yeah, and I have some of my own projects too. One that I'm not really talking about a whole lot yet, but I will be real soon. It is it's a documentary, and it has to do with sports and cannabis.
All right.
Awesome. Well, speaking of all of that, if fans want to know more about any of your upcoming events, projects, or anything like that, where can fans keep up with you?
Well, robvandam.com is the hub that I always try to post all of my recent interviews. Like if I have a link to this, it'll be on there, and as well as appearances. I do stand-up comedy too, by the way, guys.
Oh, awesome.
That's just for fun. It's a passion. Get up there in front of people. As an artist, I like to write the jokes, and I like to deliver them and connect, and boom. I'm not looking to switch careers or travel any further than a couple hours to do it. There's so many clubs in LA. But anyway, I have all that there, and my social media is The Real RVD. That's my Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all that.
All right. Well, Rob, thanks so much. We can't wait to see you this Sunday at Citi Field, possibly going against the Sabu. So, guys, we'll see you out there at Citi Field.
Okay, cool, man. Looking forward to it. That's one of the pick'ems and choose'ems. You don't want to miss a chance to go into the New York City. Yay, New York.
Steve, I think it goes without saying that is one of our best shows that we've done, but I just have one question for you.
What's that?
Are you excited for this Sunday?
I am excited, Jonathan. I cannot wait. It's going to be a great time. Rain or shine, kids. Head on over to Mets.com/wrestling. Pick up your tickets today. Get all the information over there. Once again, thanks to Citi Field, and Jonathan, we'll see everybody Sunday.
We'll be there. Will you?
Community calendar.
Saturday, August 1st at 7 p.m., Wrestling Under the Stars 4 for Northeast Wrestling. Come see Rey Mysterio, the Hardy Boys, Alberto El Patron, Velvet Sky, Mickey James, the Young Bucks, Samoa Joe, and Northeast Wrestling Champion Matt Taven. Guys, head on over to northeastwrestling.com for more information and to purchase tickets today.
All right, everybody, listen up. On July the 18th from 12 to 2 p.m., another wrestling podcast will be live at Tito Santana's Taqueria in Beacon, New York, with none other than Tito Santana himself. Come on out, get a picture, get an autograph, and there's going to be a special combo that if you get a picture and autograph with Tito, you get a free taco. And that is one of my mottos in life. That you can do anything for a free taco. So come on out, support another wrestling podcast, support this great local business, and come meet Tito Santana. Arriba!
We want to thank you guys for listening today. Every week we create something for you to listen to, and it's absolutely free. We are the Wrestling Fans Podcast, because after all, we're fans also. Help us out by subscribing to our show on iTunes. While you're there, you can rate us and give us a good review.
If you're looking for more AWP, then head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com to find out more about upcoming guests and where we may pop up. Be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and buy an official AWP shirt from ProWrestlingTees.com. We couldn't do the show without you, so please tune in next week for
Another wrestling podcast.